The IWW trial was the largest mass trial in the history of the United States. 101 defendants, 101 convictions. Everybody who went to trial was convicted. Those who did not evade U.S. jurisdiction went to prison for it. What was it they went to prison for? Sedition. And what was the sedition? Telling draft-age men in the United States not to go to World War I. That's it. The land of free speech. It wasn't just the IWW, socialist movement as well. You got a socialist feminist from the Midwest by the name of Kate Richards O'Hare, who got a 5-year sentence for informing the women in an assembled audience at the University of Kansas that she considered them to be something more and have a fate more dignified than to serve as brood sows for the enrichment of war profiteers in service to the government of the United States. And I think that's a direct quote. That's what she said, and that was a 5-year sentence. So that's something else we're living with today. You got a guy down here in San Jose, I think, who is going to trial on a hate crime for taking a sledgehammer and going up against a Columbus statue sometime in the recent past. Is that not true? Yeah. Yeah. You got a statue down there to a perpetrator of genocide, a Heinrich Himmler of the Americas. Somebody says that's inappropriate, take it down. They don't. Takes direct action against it, and that becomes a hate crime. Well, interesting. If you start putting up statues of Hitler, understand you can't touch that because, after all, to do so would be manifesting apparently hate to Germans. No, it's hate to genocide. There's a difference, but not in U.S. jurisprudence. So they take these things and turn them around on political bases. Anybody that thinks you're going to get more laws passed in order to alleviate conditions, understand that every time you get a law passed by this government, this state, you feed into it, you validate it, and they end up using that thing against you. Every single time. It's not to get more laws passed, it's to get the law off our backs. That's another way of saying it's not to reinforce the state structure. The state is not your friend. The point is to get the state off your back. But you got a second red scare that's often erroneously referred to as McCarthyism. And McCarthyism literally abolishes the left for a second time in the United States. You don't have to worry about anarchists anymore. They never, ever really recovered from what was done in 1919. I know you got a resurgence of anarchist thinking and anarchist sentiment in the last 10 years in the United States, but there is nothing on the scene right now resembling what it was prior to World War I in the United States. If we got another 20 years of the kinds of growth of anarchist thought and sensibility in the United States that has been evident over the last 10 years, that is an entire generation worth. We might get back somewhere approximately the same point we were a century before. So it had this kind of impact. The IWW had 1 million members. And the things I'm talking about, you need to take a look at and compute in a certain way. And the way you need to compute them is that if the things I'm talking about hadn't been done, what would the face of this society look like now? How would the history of the United States have developed? If an anarcho-syndicalist movement with a highly developed political consciousness and an agenda and effective tactics not been obliterated by the mass trial of its leadership in 1919, but it ultimately evolved and grown according to its own dynamics and its own ability to articulate its message to the public at large, what would the nature of the U.S. labor movement have looked like? What would the work relations in American workplaces look like? How would it be different from the way it is now? I think you can probably connect those dots and trace it out in such a way as to understand things would be very, very different and in a very, very positive form from the way things are now. So these interventions...